Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take for Market Rebellion on this Wednesday hump day. And it's an interesting day when you look back to yesterday. A very interesting day yesterday. We started off pretty weak, actually trading down about 120 points on the Dow. You had the Nasdaq down about 42. You had gold, silver, and crude all sort of hanging around the levels where they were. Gold was trading around 1950. You had silver around 24 and a half. It had gone up and up above 25s. Crude still hanging around that 41 level. But as we got into the trading day, we started to get a little bit closer to flat. 3 o'clock comes rolling around, and suddenly there's some definite pressure on the markets. And that pressure definitely started to push and accelerate throughout the final hour or so of the trading session. As a matter of fact, some of those names that were down were continued to kind of pull back down to where they were earlier and maybe even a little further. You had names that certainly earnings was a big focal point, and it's been all week and will continue throughout the rest of this week. But 3M, McDonald's, 3M was down about 5%. That was pulling on the Dow. You had McDonald's down a couple of percent, pulling on the Dow. Nasdaq was trading a little bit better, but not a whole lot. You had energy down about 2% yesterday, so that was getting pulled. And then you look over at the OIH, which we bring up all the time. I bring it up all the time because that's more of that beta. It's the services. So that was down about 3.5% yesterday. So that was sort of the story with energy as crude continues to hang around that 41 level. Now the Nasdaq, the semiconductor index definitely getting hit yesterday, down about 2.5%. And you had the technology index itself down about 1%. So what were some of those names? Nothing was getting hit that hard, but some moderate selling in Microsoft, Cisco, Apple, Google, Tesla, NXPI. Then you look over at the biotechs. We've talked about this broader swipe. Well, biotech's definitely struggling yesterday, down about 2.5% yesterday. So that was something that did stand out as the volatility index started to creep back up over that 25 level. We've been talking about the contraction of the moves, and with that contraction, we've watched volatility come lower. I've also got to point out to you the contraction within where volatility is. So a little bit closer to about a 3-point range right now, probably, rather than the 5-point range we had been in for such a long period of time. It looks like now maybe the range is something, let's call it 24 to 27. So here we are trading around 25, in the 25s yesterday. The thing that stuck out most yesterday, volumes. Volumes coming down again, and volumes trading around 22 million. Actually felt kind of like a ho-hum, sort of a dull day yesterday. We've gotten spoiled with this 25 to 30 plus million contracts, and all of a sudden you get 22 million. It really does feel very, very slow, despite the fact that that's a monster day in any other year. But in 2020, that's kind of the slowing down period that we're seeing now. A little bit of the winners and losers, and yesterday some of the winners, some of the pandemic stocks, but you look over at Zoom, that was one of the winners. But earnings wise, take a look at Polaris. I think we highlighted this one yesterday as well, but 52-week highs. Scott Wine did an unbelievable job with this company as he came in, made some acquisitions, and just the social distancing and the pandemic type stock. I don't know how you wouldn't look into this and say that it is, because we're talking about ATVs, talking about boats, we're talking about pontoons, all of that type of thing within the Polaris model right now. And boy, they had a great performance yesterday. Some of the losers, 3M. Too many categories that with the exposure, whether it's to travel or other areas that are just not really suited for what we're dealing with here in the pandemic. Now, we did hear from them that we were seeing some improvements throughout the quarter. So that's something, as you see some opening up, makes a lot of sense. So earnings still in focus. Also in focus today is going to be what's going on up on the Hill. And as you see these big tech folks getting up there in front of the folks up on the Hill, going to be a lot of interesting questions being asked and a lot of analysis being done. We'll see if anything very meaningful comes out of this, and we see if there's any kind of shifts that might come out of this. But it's always going to be worth watching, and there's always some back and forth that get pretty interesting. So I would encourage you not to be bored by it, but actually to watch it, because I think there will be some very interesting back and forth between some of these CEOs and the rest of the folks that are asking all the questions. So when you look at what was going on yesterday, we talk about earnings and some of the influence. And last night, a big earnings slate. So Starbucks today, it didn't move as much last night, but today it's up about 4%. AMD up about 12 to 13%. This is a stock that was screaming into the number. A lot of that had to do with Intel, and the delays that Intel had, obviously beneficial to AMD. but they'd already run so strong. Now you get this delivery, and Lisa Su, the CEO, just gave everybody exactly what they wanted to hear despite the run. So add another 12 or 13%, at least early on today, to that number. Boeing down about 2%, GE down about 3%. So not everything was great. As a matter of fact, some negatives pulling on the market right now. When I look over at the Dow, it started off a little flat. We ran up. We were up about 100 points. Now we're up about 60 points right now. But the negative side, it's Boeing because of the earnings. You look at Raytheon, which gets pulled down a little bit with it as well. Some of the positives, however, look at American Express today along with United Health. United Health screaming to the upside. So there is that little bit of a dance, a little bit of a balance of some of the good and the bad of what's going on within the Dow 30. But the Nasdaq, definitely strong. Up about 100 points today. Nice move to the upside. A lot of that, you take a look, yes, AMD, Starbucks, we talked about that already, but add in Tesla, add in Apple, add in Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Xilinx, Juniper up about 5% as well. So some nice participation. You can see it up. It's about 1% right now. Biotech sort of fighting today, not doing as well. And some of those big names pulling down on biotech today. You look at Amgen, Regeneron, and throw in Moderna, and you can see some negatives that are pulling right now. It's been moving on that broad side of the NASDAQ. We talk about the biotechs a lot. Today, actually, in negative territory, even though you're seeing a nice move to the upside out of the NASDAQ names, some of those tech names, and you're seeing a really nice move from the SMH. We talk about chips all the time. AMD is obviously in that category, but Lam Research, NVIDIA, NXPI, nice moves to the upside. So you've got chips up over 1%, at least early on. We're about an hour into the trading day. You're flat when you look at a lot of the commodities. Talk about crude, gold, silver that have been screaming. Well, crude been hanging around this 41 level for a while. 1950-ish we could call where gold seems to be finding a spot, at least temporarily. Just got up there, just had this big run. It's been a really big run for gold and silver, and kind of holding in there. So maybe a little bit of a time for a little bit of a hesitation before the next move. We'll see. There has been so much option paper in GLD and SLV, especially over the last couple months, but really focusing on the last couple of weeks and the last week or so. Unbelievable amount of option paper in there, all bullish, and some very, very large paper as well. So let's hit a little unusual option activity. Now, we've hit this name once or twice before, and Roku seems to be one of these names that hits, and when it does hit, it seems to hit early in the day. So it did hit early in the day. We're less than an hour into the trading session. I look over at Roku, and I see it trading 150, 175 in that range. Call it underneath 152. What are they buying? Extreme short term. Now, we have been seeing a little bit more out to January, some of the fall months as well, but we've been talking about this theme of everything short term. It's not everything right now because the last couple of days we have seen that little bit of expansion a little further out. But in this particular case, Roku, we're looking at Friday, July 31st. It's 29th today. Friday is expiring. 152.5 calls. About 3,000 of those were purchased, about 270 up to about 350. So nice amount of premium they're buying. Very, very short term, and that stock's going to have to blow through and move to the upside in a rapid pace. Got 2 days for this to work out. So very, very short term, very much you have to understand that. Guys, I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take for Market Rebellion. Get educated. Knowledge is king. We got the best educators in the business. These guys can show you all the ropes and understand more of the risk and all the factors that go into pricing these options. Have a great day of trading.